Okay, so yesterday we talked about choosing curriculum. If you have not chosen curriculum yesterday, don't worry about that. These steps that we're going through, the honest truth is these days you don't have to do them in a particular order. They all have to be done, and there's going to be a little bit of overlap as you go from creating your space where things need to go, to finding your curriculum, to getting your supplies, to figuring out your schedule. And sometimes you're going to need to go back and forth between them. So if this is the session that you're getting first, which is all about supplies and how to figure out supplies before you're really nailing down what you're doing for your curriculum, that's okay. All right. You can do them in whatever order. All right. You're going to need to go back anyway a little bit. So don't worry. All right. So today we're talking about supplies. And then as soon as that's over, I do have a bonus section on schedules and creating schedules 2 different ways that I'm going to talk about after this particular session. So if that's something that you want to stay on for, just be aware that that's coming after this one. Okay. So yesterday we talked about choosing your philosophy for curriculum, making math and language arts a priority, figuring out what other subjects you're interested in, and then back off, right? Like when you start going down the rabbit hole of the other subjects, it's very easy to decide that you want your kids to do like 15,000 things. And the back off is just encouragement, like keep it simple, keep it fun. If you get to this place and you think, well, I have a few things, but I feel like this is too easy, this is not enough. Bing, right there, that's where you're good. Stop right there, where you still think it's easy, where you still think, I can do this. This feels like it might be too simple. Whoa, put on the brakes, because you will come up with other stuff to do. You can always come up with other things to do, but don't put that on yourself. Don't make that a commitment, okay? So stick with the commitment where it's still like, I think this is too easy. If you get to this place and you're like, whoa, I don't know how I'm going to make all this happen, you've got too much on there, or you don't have enough to support, which is what we're going to talk about tomorrow. We're going to talk about support tomorrow. All right. So this is a good check in with how you're feeling about this. Okay. Now, if you're just nervous because this is new and you're not sure how it's going to go down, let it happen. And you're always going to end up adjusting during the year anyway. Okay. So just let it go. But today we're going to talk about supplies. And I'm going to show you a way that I figure out what we need for supplies and some of the key pieces that some of the key things that I do in order to create those lists. Okay. There's a lot written on this next page. Don't get nervous. I just wrote it so that I wouldn't have to write it while I'm standing here with you. Okay. So I create a chart to figure out supplies. But before we get to this chart of how to figure out supplies, I want to tell you a few things that you're probably going to want to think about as the lead learner teacher. In classical conversations, we call ourselves the lead learners. And that is just a way of recognizing that we don't know what we're doing, but we're willing to learn new things. And by default, the process of learning new things and having a good attitude while we're learning things, we are being an example to our kids of what it looks like to learn new things with a good attitude. And so I want to encourage you that that as you go through all of these processes, you're the lead learner, you're the example. And so as the teacher and the lead learner, there's going to be some supplies that you probably need. Okay. So I'm going to go over those first really quickly. Now you may have your own set of things that you like to have. And if I don't mention something that you love having as a teacher, go ahead and drop it in the comments, because I want everybody to benefit from these things. But I'm going to give you some of my favorites. Okay. So as a teacher, one of the things that I've already mentioned, I like having a bag that I carry around this is like my bag that I carry everywhere, that when I go to, and I know I need my calendar or I need to be able to grade papers, or I want to take my laptop and figure out stuff. This is the bag it goes in. I regularly keep a couple of pens in here. I have a laptop pouch in here so that I can just drop my laptop right in here. I usually keep some form of backup battery in this bag so that if I'm somewhere and I don't have power, that I can plug in. And usually a few like Post-it notes or things like that I keep in this bag. This is just so I can be really flexible about where I help people do school. All right. So that's one of the things. The second thing is I still like having a paper calendar. Some people have gone digital. And so I actually, if you want to know how crazy it is, I actually keep 3 calendars. I have one that I keep on the wall that's a monthly dry erase board, and that's to communicate to the whole family and all the kids what we're doing. That helps us be successful. I do keep a digital calendar of the appointments that we have, and that's shared between me and my husband. And as my kids get older, it gets shared with them as well so that they can put their agendas in there too. But then I also keep a paper calendar. And the reason I keep a paper calendar is because I don't like cluttering up the digital calendar that's shared between all of us with all of the minutia that I want to keep track of in my schedule. I put, like, these are the things that we're having for dinner. I make notes about, I need to prioritize working on math with this child today, or make sure that, during what looks like free time today, I'm going to clean my house or things like that. I like scribbling things down on my calendar. I make a mess of it. If you're wondering what I use, this is a little bit woo-woo, but I like this one from, it's called the Inner Guide calendar, inner-guide.com. I got it off Amazon though, but I like it because it has a week at a glance. It's got a little to-do list. It helps me prioritize over here. It has a little spot where I can make a note of who I'm choosing to be. And as a life coach for other moms, a lot of times I like making a note up here. I don't always. It's got some little encouraging things, like it has little quotes down here. This one says, difficult roads often lead to the most rewarding goals. I don't always use all the extra things on there, but I like the way this one's set up. It's worked for me. It's also got month at a glance. So there's lots of calendars that are set up this way. This one just has a little bit more mindset stuff incorporated into it, and that's my thing. So that's what I use. Tons of people love bullet journals. Lots of people love going without a calendar, whatever. What are you using for a calendar? I use this for a calendar for myself and a planner for my I lost my train of thought. I use it for my lesson planning. There we go. Because most of my lesson planning is already done for me. I'm not creating my lesson plans from scratch. And so I just make notes in my calendar if we didn't do school on a day that I expected to do school, or I will make a note about this needs to happen instead, or something like that, or we need to tweak the plan for this day. Most of my stuff is pretty well set out, what we're going to do during any given week. So I don't have to have a separate schedule out lessons for things, because that's already done for me with Classical Conversations. So calendar or planner. You're also probably going to want something to file things in, like file folders. I recommend having at least, at bare minimum, 1 file folder per kid. okay? Because it's pretty wise to keep a sampling of your child's work through the year as a homeschooler. Now, you don't have to keep everything, okay? But think of it kind of like a public school where they give a report card every 9 weeks or so. So you want kind of what you want to be able to do is show progress. If somebody comes to see, are you actually doing school with your children? You want to be able to show progress. So you can keep, I usually try to keep the very first paper that year that my child does in a folder with their name on it. All right. And for the math and language arts primarily, once they get up to high school, I keep more stuff. But for the lower grades, I primarily try to keep a sampling of their math and their language arts from the very beginning of the year. And then I'll try to pull a couple of things throughout the year. So maybe, like close to Thanksgiving, somewhere around February or March, and then at the end of the year, so that you have like 4 different things, and that shows the progress of the student that goes in their folder. So make sure you have, at bare minimum, a folder for each of your kids that's doing school. And then I like having a notebook myself to scribble in, make notes, make a mess. I just go through subject notebooks right now. I have a 5-subject notebook, not because I use all 5 subjects differently, because it's the one that has the most pages in it before I have to change to a different notebook. So I just start at the beginning, scribble through the notebook 1 page at a time. If I want to keep something, I rip the pages out and stick it over in whatever file I want to keep. All right, that's what I do for that. And then pens you like. If you're about to homeschool and you have a pen that you like, get some and hide them, because otherwise you won't have them after the first 2 weeks of school. Your kids will find them and they'll use them and you'll never see them again. So find some pens you like and then hide them where you can find your own pens. Okay. I'm already getting questions, so let me just catch these. It took me 5 or 6 tries. I just finished about 15 minutes ago. However it works, it was really helpful. Nice, Ina. I'm so glad that you got your curriculum done. Awesome. I like your bag. Can you tell me where you got it? Amazon. The name on it is Mosiso, Mosiso. Modern Life, Classic Fashion. And just so you know, it's like maybe 16 or 18 inches wide. And it's probably a little over, like maybe 12 or 14 high. Anyway, Amazon. Got it off Amazon. That's the bag. Do I have a desk or somewhere that's your space to put your calendar, stacks of papers? Hate moving things from here to there and not having my spot to put stuff. Yeah, so I have a desk in my room, but it doesn't have any drawers hardly. It's actually a vanity. That's where I do most of my coaching. And a lot of my materials are actually in the dresser in my bedroom, because I have a big enough closet that all of my clothes are kept in my closet. So I have this lovely dresser in my bedroom, and that's where I keep all my stuff. And then I have, but my calendar and my notebook and my pens all live in my bag. They all live in my bag. That's just, and if my bag's upstairs, it's upstairs. If it's downstairs, it's downstairs, because I like having it kind of ready to go. I also like the fact that I carry a small purse and I can stick my small purse in the bag and I don't have to switch out. So that works really well. As far as the papers, I have a file cabinet in my closet. And so I keep my file folders in there. If I didn't have a file cabinet in my closet, I would get one of those file boxes like the plastic file boxes, go ahead and set it up with files in it for this year. And then you've already got a system set up to be able to drop your stuff in. All right. Also, if your kids are doing workbooks, it's okay to just go ahead, like when you have time, rip out the first few pages that they did, stick them in the file, then you've already done it. When you get to Thanksgiving, go through and rip out some pages. They don't care. They're not going to go back and look at what they did. Don't save that big honking book. That's what I mean. All right. The name of the calendar, again, Inner Guide. It's called the Inner Guide Planner or Inner Guide Calendar. It's not Christian based, but it's not like, it doesn't have a bunch of new age gobbledygook in it either. It's just mindset strategies. All right, so that's what I do for teacher stuff. Yes, so now let's talk about how to figure out what your kids need to do, all right? Or what you need for your kids. Number one, you're not going to need as many supplies at homeschooling as you do sending them to all different grades, because you can share a lot of supplies. However, you need to figure out which kids do you expect to be doing their learning independently, and any of their subjects that you're planning that they're doing independently, I really recommend going ahead and getting their own supplies. Otherwise, you're setting yourself up for a lot of, I can't do my work because they're using the markers. I can't do my work because they have the geometry thing. I can't do it. You understand, right? Okay. So this is how I set up how to figure out what we're doing. And this is why I put curriculum first, because it'll be more concrete. So I write down, I build a chart. You don't have to do it on a big giant piece of paper. You can do it on your notebook paper, okay? But these are the categories. So the subject that the child is taking, this is per child. So this is like Rachel's school, okay? Rachel's school. She's going to be taking these subjects, all right? The next category is what books does she need for that, all right? How is she going to make notes, or where's she going to put her work? Like, how does that work? This category, what's she using to write with, and any other materials that she's going to need for that subject, right? So I make a chart for each kid. Don't get overwhelmed. Just do one kid at a time, okay? Just do it one person at a time. So I put her subjects down. So let's say, for instance, she's taking math and she's taking a literature course. This is IEW. She's taking biology. Don't worry about this one down here. So let's say she's taking these three courses. She's not taking those three, but just for example, okay? So for math, I know that she's taking Saxon Algebra 2. And that means she's gonna have an algebra book and a video. We're using some of the videos this year. That's what we're doing. So how is she going to complete her work? Well, I'm pretty sure she needs some notebook to write in, because those books are not consumable. You don't write directly in the book. So she needs a notebook. What kind of notebook? It definitely needs to be a giant one, or she needs multiple notebooks, because it's a lot of writing down problems. So I'm going to get her a 5-subject notebook for math, because I don't want the pages to come out. Or I don't want her to rip, I don't want them loose leaf. And I want it to be a big fat notebook, because she's going to use the whole thing. She's going to need pencils for that. What kind of pencils does she like? I might check with her and find out before I go buy pencils, because she's old enough, she has a preference. And then does she need any other things for this subject? Well, I already know she needs a certain kind of calculator. She's going to need a laptop for her to be able to use a laptop, at least for her videos. She needs a good set of headphones, and she needs a compass. Now, let me tell you something about this. I already know in my head that we have all of these things. Why did I write them all down? because I want to make sure that I can find them and that they work. Okay, so I put it over here so that they will get gathered and so I can work on them. And it helps me get all the things out and not forget anything. I know she doesn't have a 5 subject notebook, and neither do I. And I know that I can't remember if we have pencils or not. So both of these would go on my supplies list. I'm not going to order them from Amazon. I know I'm going to get them locally. So that supplies list that we set up to begin with, they go on the local purchases list, right? 1 5 subject notebook, some pencils. And I might put her initials next to pencils because I need to know, wait, what kind of pencils is she going to write with? Because she's picky. So I would do that for each subject. So this is a writing course, IEW. She's going to have a workbook, and I know she's going to have a 3-ring binder that has reference material in it. Aha, do I have a 3-ring binder? I don't know, but that's when I brainstormed what books does she have, I remember, okay, I need to make sure that I have a 3-ring binder. That goes on the purchase list, okay? 1 subject notebook to be able to scribble in and take notes, but it doesn't have to be very big because she's typing a lot of things. Pens and highlighters for the class, and then I know she's going to need to type on a laptop. We're going to need more printer paper to be able to print out essays, and I know that they're going to need copies of worksheets. Okay, so what goes on my purchase? The 3-ring binder, the 1 subject notebook, pens and highlighters, and then on a to-do list, and the printer paper. On a to-do list, I'll jot down, I need copies of certain worksheets out of the IEW thing. So that goes on my to-do, all right? And so I'll go through each subject that child is taking that way. Biology, a book and a workbook. She's not going to need anything to take notes because she's got a workbook. Pens, but she might need lab supplies. Do I have these? And what this makes me think of is also something to corral all the lab supplies. Now, I don't actually know if she needs her own lab supplies or if they're using them, but I know she's going to use some lab supplies, and I'm not sure with COVID if she's going to be able to share or not. I'm kind of thinking not. And so this says, that's a to-do. I need to find out, does she need her own lab supplies? If so, which ones? So I have a list that can go, and that's a to-do. Ask the director, does she need her own lab supplies? Excuse me, so sorry. Another potentials, let's say it's not Rachel, let's say I've got a little kindergartner and they're going to go through a program like My Father's World Kindergarten, or maybe they're going through the Abeka program or whatever. A lot of those programs will send you their whole curriculum like all at once. You'll get a set of books. They won't need anything else because it all came in this to like write notes in or whatever. But they might need different things to write with, especially younger kids. They're going to need, colored pencils and markers and pens and highlighters and scissors and glue and all the things, right? And that gets really overwhelming. Like, wait, what do I need? Most of those programs also have a list in the back of the book. Now, how do you make your supplies list without your back of the book list? How do you know what you need? Say you ordered it yesterday and you don't have it yet, but you want to go ahead and get most of your supplies. Here's the secret. I highly recommend dropping on a forum, homeschool forum. Hey, I just ordered my whatever program. Is there a supplies list in the book? Is somebody else doing this program? Do you have can you send me a picture of the supplies list so that I can go ahead and make sure I get the stuff while I'm waiting for my curriculum to come in? There's lots of people out there that are so willing to help if we just ask the right question. So if you want to get started on supplies and you don't have the list, somebody else probably does. Go find out if they do, okay? If you can't get that, don't worry about it. Just think through things like, or go pull up like list of supplies for kindergartners. All right. Most of them are going to be pretty much the same. So, so that's a couple of different ways you can create this list. So I put all of those things on my to purchase page, right? Um, unless it's something I need to order, like a microscope, then that would go on my order it on the web. All right. Once I've got all my kids figured out, and that helps me know how I'm going to structure their stuff, whether they need file folders, whether they need page dividers, do they need page protectors, things like that. Once I've got all of the things on the purchase page, I go shop my house. From the purchase page, I go shop my house. Because we don't need more junk in our house than we've already got if we already have it. Now, here's what I do. I shop my house, and here's what I do. If I find pencils in my house, they either are pencils that I can use or they go in the trash. There's not an option for, oh, these are kind of, but I just would really like to have fresh pencils, so I'm gonna buy some fresh pencils and maybe I'll use these as backup. Like, no, honey, like either they're the pencils that you can use or they're not the pencils you can use. Figure it out. Like, maybe you need a few extra pencils, or maybe you have decided, I want to go get backup pencils for when these are done. But if you go get new pencils and you use those in first instead of old pencils that you have, most of us know the honest truth that we're not going back to using those old ones. So shop the house and either use it or lose it. All right. Then figure out what you need to purchase. And from that standpoint, you need to decide which of your kids can work to, like, which ones of them are working independently versus together. And that will tell you how many supplies you need to have corralled in one spot for everybody and how many need to have their own supplies. All right. Usually the older kids need to have actually less like writing and physical supplies, and they need a few notebooks. But most people with younger kids, you can get away with having like one bucket of supplies, right? So one way if you're wondering how to organize that, one way I've done it is like getting one of these cleaning caddies and putting plastic cups in them. And then you throw all your markers in one cup and all your pencils in another cup and all your pens in another cup. I recommend having a pencil sharpener. If you don't, like an electric pencil sharpener, don't get one of these little bitty. An electric pencil sharpener. And I put it all in like either a cleaning caddy or a plastic bin that's fairly sturdy with cups or jars or something like that. And it lives at our entryway coat closet we don't have coats in it because we live in Georgia. So who needs a coat? And so I have shelves in there, and that's where it lives. It lives in that closet. Probably, honestly, during the school year, it's going to live on the buffet in my dining room. It's just going to sit there all year because we're going to use it multiple times a day, every single day. So that's one set of markers, one box of pencils, some pens and highlighters and things like that everybody can share. Now, when I had 7 kids and they were all using markers, I did buy a nice set of markers for all of them because the 3-year-old would smash them and eat them, and the 9-year-old would be annoyed that their markers were smashed and eaten. So I did buy sets, and they kept, like, these are Jonathan's markers, and these are Justin's markers to eat. So we kind of did that with some of the supplies, but by and large, you can combine them and you don't have to spend tons and tons of money on all these things. You probably are going to need more notebook paper than you think. You probably will need a few more notebooks than you think you need, like either composition notebooks or spiral bound, whichever is your preference. And you'll probably need some more printer paper than you think you need because you're making your own copies. I'm sorry, it's blurry, isn't it? Let me answer your question. The third category over: subject, book, notes, writing utensils, and other. Yeah, stapler, you might want a stapler, a few paper clips, some things like that, office supplies. But go through this and think, how are they going to do the work? What are they going to put the work on? How are we going to store the work? I'm pretty brutal when it comes to storing work, having moved our gigantic family several times recently. I store their work primarily on a laptop. And so if they write a paper, I might print off one paper and store it, and staple it together and store it in a file. But as far as say they write a paper every single week to present to their other friends in their class, except for the one at the beginning and like the 2 or 3 that I save later, the rest of them go in the garbage. I don't keep them. Ain't nobody got room in their house for 7 kids, schoolwork. Blah. So don't be afraid to throw that stuff away. 16-month-old eating the markers and the 4-year-old smashing them. Yep. So get a set for one of them to eat and the other one to smash, and then they don't have to fight about which thing is happening to their set of markers. Just, I guess, get some non-toxic ones because yum. All right, so that's kind of how I do this. And then it goes on my to-do list, to order list, and to purchase list, okay? So, and that's how I take care of it. Shop my house first. Once I've shopped my house, now I've got an accurate list of things to go and purchase, and I'm not breaking the bank, okay? So let's see, what else about this one? Let me check my notes. I think that's most of the way that I schedule supplies. Feel free to ask any questions about that. Once I've done this whole process and I am really set on the curriculum that people are using, I'm really set on the supplies that they need. I have a list of all of the things that I'm going to end up needing to make copies of, or sometimes there's things that I want to laminate. When I get closer to the beginning of the school year, like usually it's the week before school starts. One day the week before school starts, I set aside, usually early in the week, I set aside as this is my day to make copies day. And if you have never experienced the blessing of doing 90% of your printing at the beginning of the year, my dear homeschool friend, blessings are coming your way. Let me just give a huge plug for it is worth making copies that you end up not using during the rest of the year so that you do not have to stop in the middle of a subject on a given day to go make copies and now your children are missing. Nope, you came prepared. You've got all these copies. So let me give you an example of just how intense I am about this. And I just encourage you, if you have anything that you know you're going to need copies for, at the least, go ahead and figure out what you're going to need through December and schedule a day to make copies. If you don't have a good printer that you can do it on your own, it is worth it as a homeschooler to go ahead and buy a good printer that can do it on your own at your house, okay? This is a great homeschool investment. So let me show you a couple of things. One is our kids do the Essentials program for Classical Conversations, which is great in that they send out a teacher guide, but then the kids have a lot of worksheets that are required to be printed for the whole year. So on my copy day, now I've done this before, so it's going to look a little intense because I've done it before and I'm like, I'm not doing this every single year, like figuring this out. So I knew that I was going to be using a program over and over again. So I figured out all of the copies that they were going to need if they did all of the work in the Essentials program every single week. I figured out all the copies that they would need. I pulled them from the book. It was a tedious process, I'm not going to lie. But now for weeks 1 through 12, this is my master copy that I keep. That this year I will take this, I will run it through the printer, and then I will take it to like Staples or Office Max, and I will have them spiral bind it so that it's actually in a notebook form. That's the way I like to do it. Other people like putting it in file folders. Like they'll have a folder system, weeks 1 through 24, and then they'll drop the papers in each of the folders, and the kid picks out the folder, says, hey, these are my copies for this week. And that works well. A lot of people like actually ripping a workbook apart. I've seen that before too. They're not going to make copies, but they want the work that's expected for the child that week to be really concrete. And so they'll actually tear the workbook apart, divide it out by the weeks of school, and put the portion of the workbook in each folder that they want for the child to be able to do that given week. And so it makes it really concrete. This is your work for the week, and you want to get it done by Wednesday? I don't care. So I'll do this for a couple of my kids. They'll each get a notebook that has these copies in it for weeks 1 through 12, and then I have one for the second half of the year, weeks 13 through 24. An example of some of the laminating I do, I have a couple of kids that are taking Latin, and I like having a cheat sheet for all of how to do their verb declensions and their noun declensions and their verb conjugations. And so I created a little spreadsheet, and then I laminated it so that it would be something that they could easily reference. So I got a laminator. So you can put that on your list. I'm a big fan of laminating some things. I actually usually laminate my kids' chore charts too, which is a whole nother issue that I cover in my Supermom School, how to set up chore lists, and even for little kids and stuff like that. I'm a big fan of laminating things. I'm a big fan of labeling things because that communicates to my family what needs to be communicated without me having to do a lot of talking. So, and you can get laminators at Walmart. Like, I think the one that I actually bought at Walmart. It works great. You buy the machine and you buy the pages, you slide them through, stick your thing in, slide it through. I have heard that it's addictive for some homeschool moms. So watch out. Let's see. What would you recommend saving for a curriculum that's very real book based in a district that I'm guessing is going to be strict about assessments? Well, I think you can create something like a journal of activities. Like if, for instance, if they're reading certain books, you could make a note about that in your calendar or whatever, and then you can either take a picture of your calendar and stick it on in a file on your computer, or you can have it in a physical journal, like just keep a journal of, hey, we read this today, and we talked about this today. I would look for things that are physical that you can collect. Like if they do write a paper or they write a story at the beginning of the year and you work on it, keep that one. And then if they do something later in the year that shows improvement on their writing skills or their language skills, I would do that. You can, if you do a science experiment based on a book, or you bake cookies or something, snap a picture and then throw it in your school 2020 folder on your computer. And that way you have photo evidence of what you actually did. Does that make sense? So I'm a big fan of like, take a picture of it. Science fair project stuff, I do not keep all that stuff. I snap a picture, throw it in a folder online, like on my computer files. The only science fair project I've kept, and that's because my son doesn't want to get rid of it, is he built a potato cannon one year to see how far he could shoot golf balls using different flammable aerosol sprays. This is not a science project for the faint of heart, I must say. Side story, he started shooting the golf balls and they were going like half a mile away, which wasn't safe. So we switched to shooting grocery bags, which still went like 50 feet. Have you ever seen a grocery bag go anywhere? We still have his potato cannon, which when we moved in with my parents, this is a total rabbit trail. When we moved in with my parents, my dad was like, "Oh, that is a weapon. Like, I'm pretty sure you're supposed to have a license for that thing. That is a serious full-on weapon. You may not shoot that at my house." And we didn't. So, you know, fun homeschooling moments. Yeah. It was pretty shocking when my son came to me with a list of things to purchase at the store. "Mom, I need some PVC pipe. I need a grill starter. I need a variety of flammable aerosol spray cans. Can you take me to the store?" I was like, no, I cannot. Before we find out where this is going or what else you need about this, nope, not taking you to the store. I suddenly think my house might not be standing next month. That's not going to be okay. But we survived and it was fun. The other thing is, I'll just give a big shout out for spiral binding at different stores, at Staples or something. If you get a book that has this kind of binding and they're going to need to use it a lot, I like my kids to be able to like open the book and lay it flat on their desk. And so some books like this, that they're going to use all year long, I take to an office supply store and I'll have them, what they do is they cut the pages off the binding and then they will spiral bind it for you. So you can get this and then it lays flat on their desk and they can use it, you know. So I've done that with another number of their books. It's going to cost you some money, obviously, to do that. I think it's run me about anywhere from $6 to $10 per book to have that done. So if it's just one kid using the book one time, I don't think it's worth it. But these books we've used for years over and over again. And so for the ones that I've used for years and years, I've had them spiral bound. I probably won't do this one because I had to buy an extra copy in order for me to have 3 of these in my family this year. So I probably won't do this one because it's probably only going to be used once. But yeah, so I'm a big fan of spiral binding. Any other questions about supplies organization or how to figure out what you need or any of that before we get to our drawing? I'm about to do that next. I just want to make sure that all of this makes sense. Just checking the comments here. All right, then we'll get on with our drawing. I'm giving away today 2 coffee mugs. So let me grab those. Okay, so the first coffee mug that I'm giving away is just some mindset encouragement. It says, "This lady is one awesome mom." This lady is one awesome mom. So I like looking for things that, I like 2 kinds of mugs. As far as what they say on them, I like things that remind me of who I want to be and who I actually am, and the calling that God's given me and encouraging me in the morning. So that's kind of, that's what this one is kind of focused on. And this mug is going to go to This one is going to Cheryl. Cheryl Marfilius, are you still on? This one's yours if you're still on here. Congratulations. I think you are one awesome mom. So that one's going to you. The other kind of mug that I like, and if you're not this way and you draw this one, my apologies. But I am a little bit of a sarcastic smarty pants mom, and I like things that make me laugh. So this mug is, "But did you die? But did you die? You're coming to me with this big long story, but did you die?" Nope. Okay, going back to coffee. So this one is for just making sure the person's in the chat. Sarah Hollingsworth, are you on here still? Sarah Hollingsworth, are you on here still? But did you die? That's this one. Congratulations, Sarah. And both of you can private message me your address and I'll mail it to you. Although, Cheryl, you're nearby, so I might be able to just get it to you, but we'll figure it out. All right, so those are the 2. Let me jot down that that's who won. All right, so that's our prizes. Congratulations. And that's all we have about supplies today. So if you want to stay on for the scheduling, all I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the recording and I'm going to switch over this paper to the scheduling and I'm going to keep going. So, so if you have questions for that, you can just stay right where you are.